if you just put effort forth, if you just put hard daily effort forth and you're kind of likable, you're going to be very successful in life. And I really want my kids to learn that more than anything else.
There's value to utilizing your strengths in a meaningful way. And I think if you can be self-aware of that and self-aware of where those strengths are, while also trying to either outsource your weaknesses or maybe strengthen your weaknesses in some way, there's power in that to kind of level out the playing field. Strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in your family business. This is Fearless Family Business. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show. My name is Adam Hill. I am your host, and I am really excited today to share my interview with Bryan McFarland. And Bryan and I've looked up to Bryan for quite a few years now, become good friends with him through a group that we're part of called GoBundance. You've heard me mention GoBundance before. It's a men's mastermind group that really helps entrepreneurs and business leaders to really level up and live abundant lives. And I was fortunate enough to meet Bryan through that organization. And I've since learned that just he exemplifies, what we want to become. He's just the prime example of living the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in his life, in his family business. And he's done that in a variety of ways. He's one of the few individuals that I know that not only runs his third generation family business that was started by his grandfather, and now he's running it, but also is part of a group. He's with his wife, Startup Spouses, with a company called 3x5 Life, which is an incredible product that simplifies the habit tracking process, and gives you a more simplified approach to tracking your habits that doesn't overwhelm you with hundreds of different kinds of things that you can do every day, but really gives you this simplified approach to how you can track your habits on a 3x5 card. It's really incredible. And Bryan is just that type of guy who not only knows how to run a business effectively, but also has that entrepreneurial mind and that entrepreneurial drive, and also is just really present, really cares about his family, really loves his friends and family and everything like that. So he's really living that life. You're going to learn a lot from this episode. I really hope you enjoy this conversation that I have. There's a lot of knowledge that Bryan drops and a lot of great stories in this episode. So I really hope you enjoy this interview that I have with Bryan McFarland. Hey everyone, welcome to Fearless Family Business. So glad you're here today because I have my good friend Bryan McFarland with me, and Bryan, welcome to the show. And I feel like we should be doing this interview in a tent or in a hotel room because that's how we seem to share most of our time together, which deserves an explanation, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yeah, super glad you're here. Yeah, so Bryan and I, we're both part of a mastermind called GoBundance, both in the family business space, of course, and we'll get into that. Bryan is an incredible endurance athlete, something we love to talk about, and been a few events, been a few adventures that we've been on where we've split a tent, we've shared a hotel room, so it's kind of a theme for us in that space, but we'll leave it at that. We'll leave that there. Don't.
Yeah, we don't have to go into details.
No, welcome to the show, Bryan. Glad you're here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I know it's been a long time coming, and love what you're doing here and how you're peeling back the layers of people's legacies and their businesses. So this is awesome.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about your kind of family business, where you came from, how you got started in that world. Maybe just give us a little history of where Bryan came from and how it all started.
So I'll keep this focused more on business than my personal upbringing. But so my grandfather started our business in 1970. We are a manufacturer's sales agency. And when I explain what we do and you have no clue what I'm saying, don't worry. A very small portion of the population, when I explain it, my wife's like, you need to work on your elevator pitch. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's hard to explain. People be like, you're a broker, you're this, there. No, we're not. So anyway, we're a manufacturer sales rep organization. So we represent about 20 different manufacturers. So they could be sheet metal shops, machine shops, injection molders, people that are doing custom electronics, and they don't have a national sales force. So they hire agencies like ourselves in a certain given territory, and we go out there and find them business, and then we get paid commission. So we're selling into the defense industry, the aerospace industry, the med device industry, just the commercial industry. So I'll use the example, like I'll go into a division of Johnson and Johnson. They're coming out with a new surgical device for your heart, and I might like quote a little machine part or a plastic part that goes into that device. Now, if they make that device for 10 years and my machine shop continues to make that little tiny machine part, I continue to get paid for 10 years. So our job is truly like down and dirty sales. We're cold calling, we're cultivating relationships. And that's kind of like the higher end of what we do. So my grandfather again started it in the 70s. Back then it was very like raw materials, very like industrial. My father took it over in 1984. He kind of transitioned the organization to be more precision, tight tolerance component level compared to just like raw steel. And then I came in 2004, and I really expanded our breadth of manufacturers that we currently work with. When I started, we were working with 6 or 7 guys. Now we're working with pushing 20 guys. And that's kind of been the evolution. I never thought I was going to go into the family business, Adam. If I did, I would have.
And that's true for all of us, by the way.
I still to this day do not understand. Like to my son now, I'm like, he's 8. And my daughter, she wants to come into, my daughter's 11. I say, you have an opportunity here if you want it. Like you're going to have to earn your way into it. But I want to let them know that this opportunity is out there for them. For some reason, I never talked to my father about it in high school, college, thinking of it as an opportunity because I went and got a business finance degree, which has served me fine, but I would have gotten an engineering degree, and that would have served me a heck of a lot better if I knew that there was a potential path into the family business.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So from the engineering standpoint, you would have benefited more from an engineering degree versus a business degree.
Correct.
Well, that's interesting. Can you expand on that a little bit? I'd love to hear why you think that is.
Because I could just, it would give me more street cred when I'm talking to these different OEMs, which is, an OEM is somebody that makes a product. So if I'm going in there and I'm talking to the procurement department and the engineering team, and they know I'm an ME mechanical engineer, and then I can sit there and talk, articulate more tolerances and design aspects from my schooling, they'll just give me a little more credibility. Through the whole, hard knocks, I've just learned it just through years of looking at prints, like mechanical drawings. Like I can tell what's going on and the tolerances and if it's a challenging part and an easy part. But it would just give me a little leg up, especially when I started.
Yeah. And it's an interesting topic that could be a rabbit hole too, because with education in particular, I mean, there's, I've heard a lot, like there's conflicting things on the business degree on whether it really serves in the world of real life or if it's technical, but then you hear about the engineering. Those are the real degrees that really kind of serve for a career or a path. So interesting path. So with your kids, you kind of talk about bringing them into the business. Or would you be guiding them down a path of, maybe like if they're thinking of getting into the business, hey, maybe not business school, maybe engineering or something like that. Is that what you'd be looking at?
Yeah, I would if they were inclined. If some people are just naturally good with numbers, so if they're inclined to have that aptitude for mechanical engineering, then I would, encourage them, especially if they think they were interested in going to the business. I mean, our business is not very business education heavy. Like we're not doing Gantt charts and we're not pulling P&Ls and really diving into the weeds there. It's a very simplistic business. So I don't think they could pick up that side pretty easily. But getting the mechanical aptitude through schooling would serve them well if they decided to come in.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, that's something definitely to think about for any business owner out there that's thinking of transitioning. Maybe think about the world you're in, not just the fact that you're in a broader world of business, but more specifically niching down into what is the service that you're offering and how can there be greater added value from the next generation. I think that's one thing that I think try to focus a little heavier on shows like this or people I talk to that, if we're more focused on, instead of just transitioning the business as is, and more focused on how can the next generation create value for this business to scale it up in another way. There's a lot of power in that.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. And even with my specific industry, if my son wanted to go into the trades initially, being like actually work in a machine shop or, work in at a sheet metal shop, things like that. Like learn a ton there if he was not college bound to then transition to, work for us. And then what I would do in that instance, Adam, is then I would send him almost to like sales schools, learn how to sell. And a few, there's amazing schools of thought on sales. So he could go take 3 different courses and really hone in how he sells within his personality. So now he's got the background of actually machining parts or working with fabrications, and then get the sales side of it.
I see. So work somewhere else that maybe isn't the family business, that could teach the skills that they could then bring into the business.
Yeah, exactly. And that was actually one of the things with my father. Like my mother had to strongly encourage my father to hire me. So he didn't want to at first, because his thought was he needs to go out there and work somewhere else for 5 years. Because as you know, there's some amazing, like let's say Aerotech, which it does, hiring of people. They have a fantastic like sales 101 foundational course that they put all their new hires through. And going and cutting your teeth there and learning from the professionals, and then taking that knowledge back to the family business, I think is very powerful.
That's credible. And what's the name of the business, if you don't mind me asking?
Really original.
Oh, yours.
Yeah, ours is James D. McFarland Company. So it was actually my grandfather's name.
Oh, interesting. Oh, cool. Very cool. Yeah. And so tell me, if you can, a little bit about the transition to where you came into the business. You started taking it over. How did that transition go? Did you kind of buy it, or did it transfer to you? What did that look like?
So are you saying after being in the business for a while, or initially coming in?
Initially coming in, then
Okay.
maybe gravitating toward, when you took it over.
So initially coming in, I was not a good hire. I was still like college Brian, screwing off, like more worried about like emailing a buddy and making them laugh than actually picking up the phone and making a call. I just wasn't. I don't know. I just was a waste of employee there for a few years. But at the same time, I've always had a really strong entrepreneurial drive. So I give my dad credit where he didn't micromanage me. Probably should have a little more. But like I was with the business for like 3 years, and I started like a side hustle of a t-shirt company, and he fully endorsed it. So it's kind of like back in, I don't know, 2006, 2007, when like Ed Hardy, like graphic t-shirts were really big. And I came up with this like vintage V. So it was all V-necks with graphics before like V-necks exploded. And I actually had some celebrities wearing them. But it was like, I'm not in the fashion business. I realize that, like, you have to constantly reinventing yourself if you're in the fashion business. And that's not, I was good for like a moment. But I wasn't going to continue to refresh the brand. But he encouraged me, and he allowed me to scratch that itch, to his credit. So I could have this creative outlet while still working in the business, and learning the business, because it takes a really long time, specifically in our business, to really get it. So he allowed me to kind of play both ends of it, which was a testament to him, which I don't think I could do for my son. So
that's an interesting perspective too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, just the whole idea of like, allowing, even within the business, you don't hear that a lot with family businesses, or, that the founder or the current generation leader allowing the next generation not just to work in the business, but also become an entrepreneur for themselves and start to do that side hustle. So that's an interesting little perspective there. How do you feel about that for the next generation if coming in?
I would hope I would encourage them, especially during my daughter or son's younger years, to try and fail. I think I learned so much through that endeavor that actually made me enjoy this business more, because I realized how hard it was to start a business. And I realized all the nuances of that, where I'm like, wow, I have this amazing foundation that I could build. So it made me appreciate actually where I was, I think, through those trials and errors.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. No, yeah, thanks for going down that with me because I know that I wonder if this resonates with you, but there may be a sense out there, especially for those coming into the business where, yeah, there's the passion for the family, the legacy and helping to build it for the next generation. But there's also this, well, what did I miss out on? What was the opportunity that I could have built? And I know we'll get to that story with you later of how you continued to pursue that entrepreneurial journey and scratch that itch in other ways. But yeah, think so. Yeah, curious to know what your thoughts are on maybe satisfying that itch a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think it's I guess it's how you're wired. I'm wired to have an entrepreneurial drive. Um, and what I realized is I could create that within the family business. I started implementing systems where we had no systems. I started expanding the breadth and creating relationships beyond like the main companies that we sold for, and asking why. Like, why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it this way? Over and over again. And I've kind of like, what we do is a very old industry. It's a dying breed of people. I just purchased a competing agency locally, and it was a one-man agency. It was a boomer and had nobody to transition to. Like, manufacturers are looking for guys like us, and we're a younger agency. So I started to kind of reinvent how we support the companies we sell for. So they were like little micro entrepreneurial projects, if you will, Adam, within the company that really at least got my like wheels turned.
Oh, I like that. That's so you use that entrepreneurial kind of bug to within the business to kind of drive that. I love how you were talking, there about you have this business that was started in the 70s, so definitely not a new business for by any stretch, but you turned it into this youthful business or you transitioned it in as you came in. So can you share a little bit about how you transitioned into that leadership role from the Bryan McFarland who was still emailing his buddies to running a company and now making these big moves to make it a more youthful company?
Yeah, so honestly, it's when I really started dipping my toe, and this is going to be a massive pivot right here. So it's really when I started dipping my toe into habit change. I suddenly, I got married at a very young age, divorced at a very young age. My college sweetheart, if you will, cheated on me with her high school boyfriend, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I learned, and that was when I was probably 26. So you learn a lot about yourself when you're on the ground getting kicked in the nuts. Like, you really do. So then, like, I kind of 27, 28 was kind of like me trying to figure out this Brian that's, single now, trying to grow up. And then I met my current wife when I was like 28-ish, and I'm like, wow, she's great. And I need to show up as the man she needs me to be to truly win her over. That was like part of my driving force. But then she was, health conscious and whatnot, and I was working out and I was doing my thing, but just a typical 20s guy. But that's when I really started like listening to audiobooks. I'm undiagnosed dyslexic, and it was really hard and challenging for me to consume information at the rapid rate I would want it to consume it. So I just started devouring books, and that just lit a fire inside of me, Adam. And that's when I kind of, you alluded to earlier, got into endurance sports. So I heard people run 100 milers, and I was like, you know what? I want to do it. I hadn't run a marathon yet or anything. And I grew up mountain biking, so I loved the trails. So this idea of running on the trails compared to running around your neighborhood just really intrigued me. So where I showed up for the business was I started to create this belief system in myself through doing difficult things like ultra marathon races. And once that belief system was created internally with me through these hard endeavors, I started to then pour that same belief system into the business. And that's when I saw the ROI and the compounding within the business really grow.
Wow. Yeah, that's so you transformed your life really. I mean, just from kind of the inside out, you have this inspiration with this new woman who would become your wife, lit the fire, you got healthy. You basically pole vaulted over the whole marathon, just went straight to ultra running. That was, is that right?
No, I mean, I started out with a marathon, but then like the goal was like I did the slow build. I didn't go from not running to a 100-miler.
Yeah, right. Yeah, still, I mean, that's just, it's an incredible feat. I obviously I share this kind of belief with you that, you know, because from similar story background, you know, I was unhealthy and not very productive in work to, hey, all of a sudden I'm doing these extreme distance races and now I'm more productive at work. Go figure. But yeah, there's this element of like health can, you know, just focusing on your health can really, you know, level up your business too. And it sounds like that was the same for you, that just building on your health, building on your purpose and building on your habits really changed the trajectory of where you went. Is that fair to say?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the habit side of that? Because I know that leads into to where your next entrepreneurial venture went into, you know, that habit piece.
Yeah. So, I mean, I, you know, started meditating in the morning, you know, did all the things like, you know, like the savers, if you will, from Hal Elrod, you know, reading all the books from Tiny Habits and, you know, all the different habit books. So I'm a creature of habit. I just learned that about myself. So, you know, having a really robust morning routine, having a really robust evening routine, you know, just like the littlest things of like always packing my lunch the night before of like something healthy and all my snacks lined up. I just was really compounding all the little things because I knew our ultimate goal in life should be optimizing our energy so that we can show up as our best selves. And all these little things people don't realize are what optimize your energy. Like if you're grabbing that bag of chips, that's taking away from your energy bank compared to eating the healthy option. So I started to realize that. So I just became this creature of like wanting to have massive habit change. So I mean, back before habit trackers were popular, like that's what I was doing. Like I was trying to hit my numbers and gamifying everything like, you know, we love to do. So that's really what catapulted me into this space of personal development.
Yeah, yeah. And so that drove you, I think, and I mean that kind of led you down a path of creating with your wife your own, you know, kind of habit tracking system, right? The 3x5 life, right? Or the life on a 3x, or the 3x5 life,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Yes. So yeah, talk about that if you don't mind. I'd love to hear about how that.
Yeah, so it was May of COVID, and so I was a journal junkie. So all the different habit tracking journals and all that they make out there, I basically owned every one of them, and I saw friends struggling from anxiety, you know, just their worlds turned upside down from COVID. And I'm like, what could I birth into the world that could help, that could like, you know, have these people dip their toe into personal development because COVID hit and me and my wife are still thriving, you know, because we still had our foundation. And we were still doing the things every day that we knew that we needed to do to keep our energy high and just feeling good and vibrant. But a lot of people didn't feel that way. So I was just like, okay, if I could boil down like all these different like habit trackers and journals and everything into like a simple methodology, what would that be? And then I was literally making pancakes for my kids, no joke, on a Saturday morning. And this idea of creating 3x5 life came to me. So it's literally a 3x5 note card. It's like custom cut, so it's a little thicker cardstock. It's perfed down the center so it can fold in half and fit into a phone sleeve on the back of your phone. So it's almost like a bolted on app to keep you off your phone. And on one side of the card is AM gratitude, like and PM whims. That's one side of the card. So prompts you in the morning, write 3 things you're grateful for. In the evening, right? 3 wins for the day. BJ Fogg, in his book Tiny Habits, is just like, hey, if you get one thing out of this book, it's the power of celebration. One day celebration will rank as high as gratitude. So you're ending the day with writing 3 wins for the day, which just puts you in a great state of mind before going to bed. And then on the other side of the card is your simple like task list. So like 10 little boxes, write your tasks for the day, and then either a schedule side or a note side where you can just like have extra tasks if you need it. So that's kind of like the really basic fundamentals of the product. So again, the idea hit in May of 2020. We launched the product, which was, prototyping the cards, different stocks, different textures, all that, making a stand so that these cards, like a 30 pack, so a month of them could sit on the side of your nightstand, and doing professional shop videos, launching a Shopify website. We did all that in like 6-7 weeks. So it was just like, I run a sales organization, so I wasn't traveling, so I had a ton of time on my hands. So it's just like, what could I do with this time that would serve other people? So we launched it. Sales really ramped up for a while. Now we just kind of have steady sales going through. Me and my wife, which you'll probably get to, like we started a podcast, 3x5 Life, which it ran 110 episodes strong. But
that is great, man.
Yeah.
That's
well, we haven't recorded since like January, so I will say that.
Yeah.
But
that's a run though. That's great.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing about the podcast was, and I think doing this with my wife is, we had this product that was doing good in the world. She was running kind of the event side of it, where she was actually meeting with like leadership at Pfizer and running basically like almost like mental health awareness, plus using the product type seminars for their leadership team. And we sold these to an entire division of Google, a division of Siemens Corporation. But the biggest thing that I loved about it was honestly the weekly cadence of the podcast. It was an opportunity for me and my wife to sit down for 10 minutes and talk about something we learned that week. It could be a book we read and an idea that came from it. It could be a podcast we listened to and some like hit you in the face like comment somebody made, and we just riffed on it. And it was short. It was 10-15 minutes, and it really made us connect in a very introspective and educational way, which I just absolutely loved. So that was like a really and another cool thing, Adam, is now we have like 100+ YouTube videos of me and my wife talking about something that means something to us, that our kids have this archive that they could always tap into in the future to be like, what were mom and dad thinking about? Like, what mattered to them? What were their values? Not them just telling me, but them telling the world.
That is so great. Yeah, I've never heard that perspective. That's something that to really think about, consider, like when you're, if if they're just 10 minutes, they're bite sized, but that's something we didn't have growing up. Like, those like YouTube videos of our parents talking with each other. And just as you say that, I'm like, wow, I would love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations. That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. So you're one of the few people that I've heard, running a family business with your father, started by your grandfather, who also started a family business with your wife, your spouse. And I know there's many people out there that might just like shake their heads and, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But what I see in you is this example of somebody who is living that love, legacy, and lifestyle kind of life, that real, what we truly want from the family business. And I want to acknowledge you for that and recognize you for just leaning into that family, because you're thinking so much about what is the greater good here and how does that work. And I'd love to hear too, just what are some of the challenges that you faced, working with your dad, working in a family, the dynamics that you had to kind of overcome to get to that place where maybe it was more harmonious or more legitimately and authentically harmonious.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to have, like me and my father got along really well. And he didn't tell me no often, which I think was a blessing, in the sense of he really wanted to see me, and I didn't realize this at the time, but he wanted me to see, and I don't know if it was out of sheer laziness on his end, but I would like to think it wasn't, but he wanted me to see me make the business my own. And I have to really commend him for that. So that really didn't create many arguments. Um, I will say I wasn't compensated well for a very long time, and I saw all my friends just catapulting me from an income standpoint, mainly in my 20s, especially my 20s, and then probably into my early 30s. And he's just like, Brian, just wait. Like it's all gonna snowball, and then you're gonna catapult your friends. And I didn't really believe him at the time, but it happened. But during those years, Adam, there was people in my ear being like, "Hey, dude, like you're pretty damn talented at sales. Like, come work for this Fortune 500 company. Like, this is the comp package." Da, da, da. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's like 3x what I'm making right now." So that did cause a little consternation internally. I don't really recall verbalizing it much to him, but I mean, it forced me to almost live a minimalist lifestyle and then create the values of, I think when you have make a ton of money in your 20s and early 30s, you can be a bad steward and create bad habits. And other people can just invest it and really compound that money, but I potentially could have fallen down the rabbit hole of creating bad habits, which I didn't have the opportunity to because I was living on a very tight budget. So I think that was the biggest thing, was the financial side of it. We worked it out. I started buying out the company. He officially retired in 2020. He was probably checked out in 2016, 2017. And I started buying the company from 2018. And it's a 10-year buyout.
So 2018, 10-year buyout, and so really you're just paying him kind of the annuity with that's buying him out. You take over all the shares and you have full control. Was that full control right away, or is that an overtime kind of thing?
It was full control over 3 years. I've had full control for, I guess, 3 years now. And but yeah, but the buyout was spread out over 10.
Yeah, yeah. Any regrets over how that was managed? Like looking back, do you value that opportunity to live the minimalist kind of lifestyle, to learn the ropes, so to speak? And is that something you plan to maybe pass on? Same kind of, if your kids come into the business, is that something you plan to do with them?
That's a great question. Because money can allow you to have a lot of great experiences in your 20s and 30s that I think me and my wife didn't have the opportunity to do before we had kids, which I would have loved to have done with her. So from that lens, you know, I hope that for my kids when they're young, that they can travel and do things. But at the same time, I want them to value the dollar and value work and value effort more than anything else. Having that drive, you can't teach. You hear the Alex Hormozzi's, all those guys out there talking about, like, what I've really realized, I'm not the smartest guy, and I went to college with a lot of smart guys, and I always have had this lens of myself that I'm not intelligent. Just growing up, like dyslexic, having trouble reading. One of my biggest fears was, somebody calling on me in class and having to read a page from the book in history. So I've always had this lens of myself as not intelligent. But what I've really realized is, if you just put effort forth, if you just put hard daily effort forth, and you're kind of likable, you're going to be very successful in life. And I really want my kids to learn that more than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, That's such a good lesson too, and I know I want to kind of transition into the fact that you're homeschooling your kids too, and talk a little bit about that. But just to touch on that piece with the you know the feeling as you were young, you know, that maybe you weren't intelligent because you had, you know, the dyslexia or that kind of thing. I know that you know, that we always, I feel like we live into our limitations a lot, and we amplify a single thing that may be a what we perceive as a limiter, and
Yeah.
that kind of overshadows everything we do to excel. You know, that emotional intelligence, the desire to be a contributor, the willingness to go out and grind. And that's what I see in you is all of those things. You know, like they just squash the one thing that might be a limiter. And even that limiter is that thing that actually maybe led you to become who you are, to give you that boost up too. So I look up to you, and I think that, you know,
Thank you.
just saying that, but yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge you on that too before
Oh,
we move
thank you.
on.
Yeah. How important has EQ become?
Yeah, seriously.
Like it's so important.
Yeah, I know some very smart people who don't have that EQ, and it's really hard to share a space with those people.
It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and it's just evident nowadays that you need it. So
Yeah, you really do, and so there's so many more factors. I mean, if you feel like there's just limitations that are, or anybody feels like there are limitations that are kind of, you know, pushing you down, how can those be a superpower?
yeah,
How can the limitation be a superpower? How can flip that on its head, or what? How can you use your other attributes to make you to as a strength?
right.
Those are there. Yeah, there's some power in that.
Well, real quick, what is?
Yeah.
Maybe you're trying to get to a question, but what is your opinion on doubling down on strengths and just kind of letting your weaknesses be your weaknesses?
You know, I feel like as you're saying that, I feel like there's a lot of. I mean, we're all going to have weaknesses. There's nobody that doesn't. I mean, it's kind of like the getting all nerdy here. You know, it's the roll of the dice on the D&D roll when you're rolling up a character, and somebody's going to have like an 8 strength, and somebody's going to have a 15 intelligence. There's that sort of thing. So I think that there's value to utilizing your strengths in a meaningful way, and I think if you can be self-aware of that, and self-aware of where those strengths are, while also trying to either either outsource your weaknesses or maybe strengthen your weaknesses in some way. There's there's power in that to kind of level out the playing field. Bring in a party to actually, you know, offset the weaknesses you do have or strengthen them,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
find that ability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's where I think like the power of like the culture indexes and some of those assessments, being really acutely aware of your strengths and how you tick and what makes you tick, and then the people around you in your work environment, you know, how they tick and what their strengths are and where their shortcomings are. It just
Yeah.
makes you understand them so much more.
Yeah, talk about the culture index for a second too, because was that one of the systems you brought into play within your company to help, you know, get a sense of your people.
Yeah. So there's a friend I have. He does like the annual subscription, which is not cheap, to Culture Index. So he allowed us to kind of go through, and he actually brought. I was on a call where he brought one of the main facilitators that really broke me down of how I tick, and then he broke down like there's my one of my key employee. He's been with me for 17 years, and he's become a dear friend. But how he ticks and how we can play off each other, and we just ironically just have this amazing yin and yang, where I'm hardcore visionary, you know, hardcore like from the top, like very. I'll say I'll talk out loud through ideas, which I don't want action on, but I'm just talking them through. But then it will spawn like him to think in a different way, where he's very much the, you know, the integrator. You know, he just, and it just happened to be that way, where he's tactical and he's like, put his head down, let's go through this. Where I'm like, that we're in the weeds now, you know. So understanding that about each other makes it so he doesn't resent me. And then I don't resent him when he can't pontificate at some level that I want to talk about. And then so then when we continue to hire, I mean, we're just a team of four, but when I hired my executive assistant, like, okay, I had her do culture index. How does she tick? And then this new sales guy I hired, which is really interesting, Adam, is it basically said he's an introvert. And I'm like,
Right.
man, but he is a type of guy that if you give him a task, he like needs the playbook and he's just gonna follow the playbook. So we do a ton of outbound calls, like a ton of like very repetitive tasks. And I knew he'd just crush those. So I'd much rather have that than some like loud, boisterous guy that's not gonna like really do what he's supposed to do because he's like running in 10 different directions.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And when you have four people, I mean, that's 25% of your culture. If somebody is the way somebody is behaving or their particular personality type. Yeah, that's a lot. So the kind of the personality indexes or the culture index, that's important to you in your business, right?
100%. I think everybody needs to do it. Everybody needs to do it, and then everybody needs to know what each other's are, or just get an understanding of how each other operate, how they think. Because if that's just like your DNA, how can you fault the person? You're going to be
Right.
so much less judgmental of that person if you just know that's just how they operate, and being aware of it.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, yeah, yeah, I mean, it's so valuable to have that for the sake of your culture. What other systems have you put in place? Because you mentioned when you came into to the leadership role, you kind of did implement the systems. Anything like of value there that you've implemented that has helped your business to kind of remove some obstacles, grow you to the next level? What did that look like?
EOS.
EOS. So yeah, so let's sing it together, right?
EOS has been great. I mean, that's been a newer evolution, I'd say, in the last 2, 3 years. So that wasn't back when I first started. But I mean, it's so funny though. I reflect back then, Adam, and we were trying to create this EOS without having this structure. We were trying to do
Yeah.
these weekly meetings. We were trying to create these quarterly goals. But EOS just made it simple. So we have like our L10s, and it's so funny. So the guy I recently hired on his 90-day review, which was, I believe, in like September, I'm like, okay, so how are things going? Like, what do you like? And he's just like, I love our L10 meetings on Monday because I get to learn about what you guys are doing, your wins, like where you're tracking on your rocks. So it was really refreshing hearing this like new hire that was completely, a virgin to EOS, like just like loving it 90 days in.
Yeah, it's a game changer, folks. I can't tell you, but yeah, I've heard a lot about this, and I've heard a lot of other organizations too, from large to small, that have implemented the systems, and I feel like regardless if it is EOS or it's some other system, adopting a system that keeps you disciplined and accountable, that leads you down a path, it just it's a way it's a refreshing way of just managing expectations and making sure you're moving forward in the right direction. It sounds like it leveled you guys up
Oh,
to another
100%.
level.
100%.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you have to do it weekly. It's just
Right,
like when you
right.
have goals, like just personal goals, if you're not reviewing those personal goals weekly, like, I mean, you're missing half the battle or 90% of the battle, because it's just like constant refresher. Okay, where do I stand? Where do I stand? Where do I stand? It's
Yeah,
just like so many people write their New Year's resolutions and they find them in their drawer, in December. And
yeah,
that's just not how you're going to be successful.
yeah, yeah. It's so true. I mean, 90-day world. I mean, you can, if you can break that 90-day world into a week, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we got a few minutes left, but I do want to kind of get into the homeschool thing and see how you're using that maybe to for the purpose of building the legacy, not just of your business, but just the legacy of your kids going out into the world and making an impact and just becoming well prepared adults. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our kids were homeschooled and then they transitioned to a small private school this year. They are in third and fifth grade. So they were in a co-op, which was with about 6, 7 other families, about 20 kids. We rented like this farmhouse at an arboretum. My wife really did a fantastic job just like owning this part of their upbringing, and it created, I think this beautiful love for like nature and like outdoors and just creative thought and not traditional schooling, that I think it makes them, even in their young age, view things in a different manner. Um, and we came to the point though that where that co-op was kind of disbanding with like some key families moving away and whatnot. So we just thought it was, and it was very girl heavy, which we saw, with my son needing kind of some more guy outlets as he aged. That
Sure.
we found an environment that we really liked with this small Christian school that they attend now. But I think and they're proud. They're like, yeah, the kids will be like, oh, what school did you go to? They're like, I was homeschooled, and they're like really proud of it because, I mean, we would, if you have young kids. I highly encourage it because we were traveling. We would go down to Florida for 6 weeks as a family. I would work remote, and the kids would be doing school down there. We would go out to Utah for 2 weeks and see all the national parks, and they'd be schooling while they're at a national park. Like we just had so many neat experiences while they were young, while they still loved us and wanted to be around us. And we didn't have the school saying, "Hey, you're in truancy now because you pulled them out of school too much." Um,
Right.
and that's where I think, like during kids' younger years, again, I was blessed. My wife taught seventh grade science for 15 years, so she's a born
Oh,
bred
wow.
teacher. So she really kind of owned the homeschool curriculum. So I mean, I kind of had an easy pass there. But it just created so many family memories that we would not have today if we would have gone through just traditional schooling.
Absolutely. Do you feel like it's a path forward too for you to maybe instill some of the values and the discipline for the things you kind of mentioned earlier about like maybe being in your 20s and being financially responsible or being a good steward of finances and contribution, things like that?
Um, what I think the biggest thing I hope the kids get out of it is don't take the traditional path. Don't do what society tells you need to do. Society here,
Yeah.
we have a great school district. You're going to go to public school. We're going to, take our vacation in the summer and we're going to go to the beach, and that's what we're going to do for one. Like, don't take the path you want to take and scratch that itch, and also how important it is to marry a person that's willing to go on these adventures with you. Like if I would have married a different woman, she wouldn't have been able to or wouldn't have championed these adventures that create an interesting life. And that's like the thing. I forget who I was Ryan Holiday. He said, well, like the one thing you need to make sure you do is live an interesting life. And I hope that's what our
Yeah.
kids got out of homeschooling. It's just like, you know what? Like when they graduate and they're in their 20s, like you said, and they want to go try to do something, like go do it. Like you have your whole life to be responsible. Because who knows, you might trip into success that will catapult you into something you never thought you'd be able to accomplish.
I love that. Trip into success. I love that. That's so good. That's such a good place to put the pin in this. I know we could go on for hours because there's so many other questions I have for you, but I'm grateful to you, Bryan, for many things, not just for being on this show, but just for being a great friend, for
Right
being a
back
great
at
roommate, for being for being a just and exemplifying that life of love, legacy, and lifestyle. Is you really are. You're setting that example, and it's an example for me, and I know it can be an example for others. And yeah, if people want to reach out, get in touch, how can they find you?
On Instagram, 3x5_life. You can get me there. So, I mean, that might be the easiest. I'm all over LinkedIn just because that's the nature of my business. Bryan McFarland, Bryan with a Y. So,
Awesome. Yeah, check that out. Check out 3x5 Life. I actually bought into those cards too a few years ago during COVID too, and they were great. Super simple. You know, we can get into this trap of just like falling into too many habits too. Like everything's important, and then that gives us more anxiety. Yep. This is a simplified approach to that habit tracking, and it's such a good thing. So yeah, 3x5 Life, so great. Awesome. But Bryan, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, it's an honor, Adam. Thank you.
I appreciate it, brother. We'll talk soon. And thank you to everybody out there for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Fearless Family Business Show. If you're enjoying this show, please thumbs up this episode and subscribe wherever that subscribe button is. And you'll get more family business education and insights in your inbox. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a colleague, a spouse, your mom, your dad, a second cousin, whomever you think might benefit from hearing this show. And if you're in a family business and you've got a great story to share, contact me, because I would love to see if you'd be a great fit for this show. I'd love to interview you. Or if you're struggling in your family business to find your unique identity or voice, or you need an injection of new life in your family business, I'd also love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more about you, and I'd love to see if I can help. Simply email me at adam@fearlessfamilybusiness.com, and we'll get you connected to the right place. Together, we can elevate the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle we all experience in our family businesses. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.